23 ABC taking a closer look at the inner workings of the Bakersfield Police Department. It's a morning sit down with Chief Greg Terry, who joins us in Studio B this morning. First, Chief, thank you for coming in this morning. Appreciate that.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Everything calming down now that the fair is over?
It is. It is. We are just coming out of the fair. We had a great fair. We have a wonderful community in so many ways, and so yeah, we had a really wonderful fair experience.
Didn't look like there were any major incidents on the fairgrounds.
We didn't have many incidents at all. We probably made close to 24 arrests, mostly for public intoxication and those kinds of things. But our staff really did a really great job of planning ahead of time and then dealing with those things as they occur, because we really tried to strike a balance between hospitality and security. Right. And I'm really proud of the men and women and the way that they were able to do that, to engage with the community and at the same time have high visibility, a real strong presence, but made people able to enjoy the fair experience.
Now, I want to talk about staffing here in a moment. Here we'll talk about Measure N and whatnot, but I want to jump ahead real quickly to an incident that just happened. It's sort of fresh in everyone's mind. It's that vandalism that happened over at Union Cemetery.
Yeah.
Where are we right now in that investigation?
It happened about a week ago, and it was isolated to what looks like Jewish headstones. Many of them were knocked over, and we don't know yet what the motive behind this was, whether this was a prank, was this an act of vandalism, was this an act of vandalism focused like a hate crime or a hate incident. We just don't know yet, and so we're investigating it.
Something like that, obviously the DA is the one you're going to present your information to them. They will decide which charges to place. But when you take a look at something like that and you're investigating it, it's got to be tough when you're dealing with something that really is priceless. Some of these are over like 100 years old.
Yeah. I mean, the cemeteries are such a sacred place, and they're so important to our community, and so it is troubling to see this kind of damage or this kind of incident occur. And because you're right, many of them cannot be replaced, no matter what you try to do for those headstones. And so it is very upsetting to the community and to the Jewish community in particular. And so we are aggressively investigating it. We really need the public's help. Any information that people might have about this incident, please call us, because as of right now, it's very limited.
All right. Getting into the staffing levels, Measure N comes along. It starts to put new money into the BPD and your ability to hire. People are always, very, very interested. How close are you to being fully staffed? And then the follow-up would be, will you ever be fully staffed?
Yeah, recruiting has been a very difficult and challenging thing over the last several years. Tremendously grateful to Measure N and the resources that it's provided to the police department, because we have been able to increase staffing. We've hired well over 300 officers over the last 5 to 6 years. Our complement is 512 officers, and we're just short of that. We're around 500 now, and so we're getting close to that mark. We have about 35 in the academy today that will be graduating in December, and so we're very anxious and need that kind of assistance as they come out on the street. And so staffing is going well, and we are getting close. And so yes, I'm very hopeful this time next year we'll be talking about being at full staffing.
When you were saying 300 positions, when you were down to those numbers and stuff, one of the biggest things that jumps out is response times and your ability to respond to those types of things, prioritizing calls and whatnot. What has that been like? Have you seen an increase in the ability for the officers to get on location when they need to?
Yeah, over the last couple of years, we've seen some improvements in our response time, particularly for the highest emergencies. Right now, we're about seven-minute response time for priority 1 call. That's the life-threatening, immediate action and assistance is needed. We're about a 7-minute response time, hovering around that. That's kind of where it's been over the last couple of years. The priority 2 and 3, those are still emergencies, but they're not necessarily in progress or don't rise to that level. And so we've seen some improvement there, but still they're not what our community expects us to be. And it's really just not about beating the clock. It's about us being able to have the resources and in place where the community needs us the most, and that's really what we're focused on.
There was one story in particular, and I'm sure you're familiar with this. It was the Sikh family that had a drive-by in their neighborhood in Southwest Bakersfield. Shots were fired into their home. They called, and they were upset because they felt like there could have been a greater police response. Did you have a reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that is a reaction that people in those kinds of events will have naturally, because when people call us, when they call 911, They're not really concerned with whatever is going on across the city. They've had an emergency and they need us there quickly. And so that's why I'm saying when we talk about response times, we're not talking about just trying to beat a number on the clock. We are trying to prioritize and ensure that we're sending the resources where they're needed the most. And so I certainly understand that feeling, that family's feelings, but that's what we're doing across the city and prioritizing so that we can be exactly where we are needed the most at that particular moment.
And how do you respond to people, they said, well, we had video of the person, we had this, we had that, and all these different types of things. Why hasn't there been any movement on that? Can you sort of talk about the complexities of things like that?
Well, that particular investigation, we are investigating it. People are being interviewed. The witnesses are being interviewed. We are looking at the video. It is a very active investigation. There are many details that we have to look at. And so we are certainly doing that. But that investigation is absolutely underway, and we're doing all of those things that you just described.
Yeah, there obviously over time and through the history of law enforcement, there is criticisms that come out regarding policing and whatnot. Can you talk about just sort of where we are now? Because since for the last few years now, the priority has been around community policing. Is that starting to sink in, do you think?
I hope so. We are very much a community policing organization. That term has been around a long time. It's described a lot of different ways. But for us, what we're really talking about is problem solving. Really trying to identify what are those chronic issues that are facing our community that we seem to keep going and dealing with over and over and over again. And let's look at the root cause of that. Very often we'll find out in those kinds of events or incidents that it's a partnership that's needed. We need the community's help. And so we are being very intentional about having good data to identify what those chronic issues are, but also being very diligent and intentional about the outreach into the community to build partnerships. We need our community support. I say it often that public safety is a shared responsibility. It requires all of us working together to deal with public safety issues at large, but also very, very specific things. We need a particular partner to come to the table to help us because they can address the root cause, what is causing this kind of thing. And so we are being very intentional about more community engagement, more input from the community, and certainly more sharing of the responsibility by the community to help us keep our community safe.
You had that community meeting just recently talking about some of those issues with members of the public. How was it received, and was there any criticism that was
No, we had a very good meeting, and what you're referring to is we had a public community meeting on our use of force policy.
Correct.
Seeking input from the community on what they want to see in our policies that govern uses of force. Use of force is a very important topic, and it affects our community and the police department as well. And so we want the community to be informed about what our policies are and what our guidelines are, and that was the purpose of that meeting. And so there will be many more of those kinds of meetings. We actually have them very frequently throughout the year, not just on a policy topic, but going into the neighborhoods or going to particular places to meet with the community and find out what's going on, how can we help them, and how can we partner.
When talking about that perception that some might have, there's going to be some in the community that are going to have a certain perception when it comes to law enforcement, one way or the other. It must seem like it's got to be a long-term solution with some folks.
Oh, sure. It's about relationships. It's about trust. And so all of these things that we're doing is we want to be a resource for our community. We want our community to feel like they can rely on us, and that when we go to deliver service, that it's going to be professional, that's going to be with compassion, and all of those kinds of things. Those are our guiding values: compassion, accountability, and professionalism. Those are the things that we focus on every day because it is about building trust. It is about building a relationship that goes to the heart of what you're just talking about. Those things are very important to us. And I'm incredibly proud of the men and women and the way that we've been doing that over the last several years. Our officers care very deeply about what their responsibilities are, and they care very deeply about this community. And so I'm very proud of the way that they're going and delivering the service. But it is important to us that we build those relationships, not just with those that love us or have confidence in us, but those that are suspicious or critics of us or have had negative experiences. We care very deeply about those relationships because, again, it's about a shared responsibility, and it's about partnerships, because that is truly how we can make for a safer community.
Chief Greg Terry, thank you for coming in. We look forward to this conversation.
Me too. Thanks so much.
Very good. We'll be right back.